headlines of Press TV. A U.S. drone attack kills several people in northwestern Pakistan as Washington refuses to stop the targeted killings. Argentina is complaining to the UN over Britain's militarization of the Malvinas dispute. Buenos Aires wants the islands back. And the Canadian government directs the country's spy agency to use torture practices to extract information from suspects. Hello and welcome live from Tehran. This is Press TV's World News. Thanks so much for being with us. First story this hour takes us to Pakistan once again, where at least 10 people have been killed in a U.S. drone strike in that country. Security officials say the unmanned aircraft fired 2 missiles at a house in an area in North Waziristan tribal region near the Afghan border. Reports say that more than 4 other people have been injured. Washington claims that its drone strikes killed militants, but most of the thousands of victims of such attacks during the past few years have been civilians. Let's switch over to Islamabad, joined by political analyst Mr. Tayyab Siddiqui. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, another 10 people being killed today and another U.S. drone strike in Pakistan. What will it take in order for the Pakistani people to get these drone strikes to stop inside of their country? And thanks so much for being with us.
I think that as far as the American administration is concerned, the State Department and Pentagon, they are not on the same page. While the State Department is very keen to restore the relation, which took a nosedive, particularly after the November 16th attack on Pakistani ship posed by the American gunship, and the freeze in the relations between the two countries. The Pentagon doesn't seem to have learned the lesson, and they continue with these attacks. But Pakistan, as you know, has already stopped all kinds of traffic for the NATO forces and American forces via Pakistan, and there are thousands of trailers and containers which are stranded in Pakistan, and it is costing United States 6 times more to ferry the whatever replenishments or equipment or food stuff they are having for their forces from other routes. But in spite of that, the Pentagon doesn't seem to realize that Pakistan is the key to the solution of the Afghan situation, whether from the American standpoint or from the Afghanistan standpoint, because it is relatively for them in such a very peculiar and particularly advantageous position. I think it will take quite a while before the Pakistan-American relations are restored, and the bone of contention has always been the drone attack. And in America, again, the questions are being asked on not only on the legality and morality of the drone attack, but also the efficacy, whether they are, and the utility, whether they are serving any purpose or they are counterproductive. From Pakistan's standpoint, they are totally counterproductive. They have not been able to help resolve the situation. American contention was that these are the high value targets, and they are killing the top militants. But the facts show that there is no such corroboration of the statements. In fact, there are more than 230 civilians, including women and children, who have been killed in these attacks and were totally innocent. And the Americans fully realize it, but I think given the military mindset, whether in America or any other country, they seem to be very rigid in their views, and unless the State Department and the White House prevails on the Pentagon, they might, and CIA, of course, because it is the CIA which is directing all these attacks.
All right. Well, thank you. I'm so sorry. We're out of time, but I appreciate you being with us. All right. Thank you, political analyst from Islamabad, Mr. Tayyab Siddiqui, for those thoughts on the latest U.S. drone attack in Pakistan. Now to Argentina, which says it will launch a formal protest at the United Nations over what it calls Britain's militarization over the disputed Malvinas Islands. Here's more.
Argentine President Cristina Fernández de Kirchner says the country can't put up with Britain's colonization of the Malvinas Islands, an archipelago in the South Atlantic Ocean, any longer. During a speech about the disputed islands, also known as the Falklands, she slammed Britain's militarization of the region. Kirchner said the country will formally complain to the UN over the region's militarization by the British.
It's also a regional and global issue because they're militarizing the South Atlantic one more time. Try as we may, we can't interpret it any other way. They're sending a destroyer, the word itself, that is huge and modern, along with the heir to the throne. That's why I've asked the foreign minister to make a formal presentation to the UN Security Council and also to the UN General Assembly that militarization of the South Atlantic implies a grave risk for international security.
This decision has been welcomed by analysts as well.
This is a very useful initiative on the part of the Argentine president to take to the United Nations, both the General Assembly and the Security Council, the fact that it is the British colonial power which is militarizing the South Atlantic.
Kirchner was speaking to veterans and opposition leaders ahead of the 30th anniversary of the 74-day war Argentina and Britain fought over the disputed territory. Close to 650 Argentines and over 250 British troops were killed during the conflict. The war broke out on April 2, 1982, when Buenos Aires attacked the disputed islands in a bid to end the British rule there. London has kept control over the islands since 1833. What has really angered Argentina is Britain's military moves in the region. London has deployed a warship to the area and dispatched Prince William, second in line to the throne, for a tour of duty to the islands. Meanwhile, reports say the UK has moved a nuclear submarine to the region. Analysts believe the British should stop militarizing the area.
It's not the Argentines who are militarizing this, but it is the Empire of Great Britain which has done this, and they should stop it.
The Argentine leader also said the issue of the Malvinas Islands has now turned into not only a regional cause, but also a global one. Recently, a number of South American countries have rallied behind Argentina's claim over the islands. The latest regional leader who threw his support behind Buenos Aires' claim of sovereignty over the islands was Venezuelan President Hugo Chavez. He urged Britain to hand over the islands to Argentina.
And now to Canada, where media reports say the government gave the country's spy agency the go-ahead to use information obtained by torture back in 2010. In a directive, the Canadian Security Intelligence Service was reportedly given permission to use extracted information in cases where public safety was at stake. The Canadian Security Intelligence Service can accept and use information from agencies that may have used torture to extract the data. In 2009, Canada's then Public Safety Minister pledged that the government would never use information obtained by torture. And now going south from Canada to the U.S., where former Pennsylvania Senator Rick Santorum has won the Republican presidential primaries in Missouri and Minnesota. Former Massachusetts Governor Mitt Romney came in second in Missouri primary, and Texas Congressman Ron Paul finished third with 12% of the votes. Former House Speaker Newt Gingrich was not on the ballot. Now, Santorum earlier said that Minnesota's caucus would change the direction of the presidential race. The victory gives new hope to Santorum, who is likely to defeat frontrunner Mitt Romney in Colorado. Now, this would be a huge upset for former Massachusetts Governor Romney, who was expected to win easily. The eventual Republican nominee will go on to face Democratic President Barack Obama in November's election. Let's switch over to Los Angeles, joined by author and Democracy at Risk, Jeff Gates. Thank you so much for being with us. How significant is what we are witnessing now? We have, there were those who thought that Romney would be winning in Colorado and in Pennsylvania. However, so far, Missouri and Minnesota now that Rick Santorum has won. Has it changed the dynamics of this Republican caucuses now?
I think we're in a bit of what we call a silly season here. The dynamics of the primaries they swing back and forth. Certain candidates bet much of their money and their time and effort on states where they know they will do well. That's why you saw Ron Paul up in Minnesota. He'll be stronger in Colorado. Likewise for Rick Santorum. I think Romney is I think rightly favored in the overall scheme of things. These look like military setbacks, but this is kind of the news of the day. He's got an enormous amount of money and organization. Rick Santorum has neither, and neither does Ron Paul. And again, it's likely to fall off the pace, but he's got some enormously deep-pocket supporters, including some very strong pro-Israelis who helped him win the South Carolina primary and do well in Florida. So again, we're in what we call our electoral silly season. So stay tuned. There'll be some more swings going back and forth.
Okay, now, Mr. Gates, looking at the whole electoral procedure that is done in the United States, there are many say that this procedure is not very democratic. You've just alluded to, for example, talking about Romney and the amount of money that he has. That money plays a major factor in this, first of all. And second of all, that the people in the United States do not directly really elect the president themselves.
Yeah, that's correct on both points. We've had a very interesting turn of events here. The Supreme Court put out an opinion recently that enabled what we call these super PACs, these political action committees, raise as much money as they want for candidates, provided they do not coordinate with the campaign, which is a bit of a farce because typically the campaign's former chief of staff will go over to be the primary fundraiser. So we literally allow someone to give $100 million, even $1 billion, put it into what we call a super PAC, and operate alongside the campaign and potentially even buy the office of the presidency. It's a very real possibility at this time, given the nature of that particular opinion. We do not have direct election of the presidency here. We have what's called the Electoral College, which is an indirect way of actually doing the final election of the president, and it's a very odd, somewhat of an antiquated system. We kept with it. But in either case, the really strong and I think very disturbing aspect of this campaign, unlike any we've ever seen before, is that Supreme Court position saying that, in effect, the most well-to-do people in the United States can give as much money as they want to their candidate. They just have to do it indirectly. They cannot coordinate directly with the campaign. We've never seen anything like this since the late 1800s, and it's a sea change in American politics, and one very disturbing to those who are watching it closely.
All right, well, thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Jeff Gates, author of Democracy at Risk from Los Angeles. We appreciate you being with us. Well, staying in the United States on this hour, a member of the hacker group Anonymous have posted personal information of officials in the U.S. city of Oakland, California, online. Now, according to a statement from the city's spokesperson, the group has published information related to the Oakland mayor, police chief, and several other officials. On its website, Anonymous says the move comes in response to the crackdown on anti-corporate protests in Oakland. Hundreds of people have been arrested during demonstrations in the city. And now to Syria, where the government's battle against what it calls foreign-backed armed gangs continues in several cities. This as the division between world powers over the months-long unrest grows wider. A Russian foreign minister has met with the Syrian president in Damascus after last week's vetoing of a Western-backed resolution at the UN Security Council. This as China has also said that it is considering sending envoys to Damascus. Reports from inside Syria talk of a U.S. scenario which paves the way for a full-scale military attack by Syria's neighbors and Israel.
Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov arrived in Damascus along with head of Foreign Intelligence Service Mikhail Fratkov for talks with President Bashar al-Assad. President al-Assad briefed the Russian minister on the reform process and the latest developments in Syria. The president said that the committee